What's up, everybody? It's your favorite nerd who calls you a weak, pathetic fool, you fool! Favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Storm Collectibles Shao Kahn. I've been looking forward to this figure. I've been looking forward to any mold that's not a repaint of a ninja, if you know what I mean. So I've really been looking forward to this mold a lot, and unfortunately, it has a ton of issues. But we'll get into those here in a second. Let's start talking about accessories. First and foremost, the throne. It is a brown plastic. It is it's shaded. The shading looks like it might be done with an airbrush because it's very subtle and it's very faded and blended. And then it has dry brushing throughout as well. At least one color dry brushing and possibly two in a couple areas because I'm getting like some hints of reds or browns over here. And then, but it's mostly just this like dry brush of this like flesh tone and then the shading. The problem, it is sculpted very well. You got the symbol there in the back. You got all these little, stuff and design, this stuff, the back plate, all of that stuff. It's wonderfully sculpted and painted. The dry brushing is a little sloppy, but it ultimately does the trick. The problem is, it's like the texture and it's like the material that a dog toy would be made in. It's very cheap, extremely cheap. Like the throne that Snoke comes with from the Black Series, far better materials. It's like an actual like real plastic. This is junk. Hey, you need a Shao Kahn throne? Not you either, huh? So he comes with two holding hands, and as you can see, he holds his hammer just fine, which we'll look at here in a second. He comes with two posing hands, but they're very similar to the relaxed hands that we saw in the opening footage, so I would have liked something a bit different there. Two fist hands, and then two pointing hands. As for the hammer, it's really nice. It's a softer plastic, so that's a bit of a bummer, but it is painted to the nines. It's cast in this like gunmetal gray, and then it's dry brushed with a silver on top, which really makes it look metallic, and then it has some blood effects throughout the hammer and on the kind of shaft, so to speak, of the hammer, and then the spike bit down here at the end. Really, really, really well done. I just wish it was a firmer material. And then he comes with this alternate face sculpt with a who stole my mask face, and it's painted well enough. You have some shading, some subtle shading on there. The veins are painted on his forehead and then like this design on his head. I'm not sure if I ever knew he looked like this, which is interesting. Kind of looks very Baraka-esque. And then, the eyes are painted red with the eye, like reptilian eyes, black. And then the teeth are painted, the inside of the lips are painted. So this is well done and well sculpted. Now, he also comes with a helmet that is interchangeable on both. The helmet is a very soft plastic. And unfortunately, because of the design and because of these little things here, and it's all like so soft and bends around the other stuff, it has a tendency not to look right on him. What I wish they would have done is taken the other head and sculpted one of these without the mask and then one with the mask and just had the same expression rather than a different expression. And then I think it would have looked cleaner. Unfortunately, it's hard to get the exact look you want with this. Being able to swap it back and forth and with the materials of this and how this connects to the neck, which we'll look at here in a second. It all forms a number of issues. Which brings us to the figure. Now, as you can see, the ball peg here, it barely extends beyond the neck, which normally would create a very seamless, connection. And I know that's what they're trying to go for, and that's cool. The problem with it is this ball peg, I think it's a double ball peg, but it's so tight down in there. And with the head on, as soon as you manipulate it, it's doing better. But it easily comes off because the ball peg barely extends beyond the neck, beyond the softer plastic of the torso, which is connected to the neck, which I have found has been an issue. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world. As you can see, I'm manipulating it just fine. I'm just telling you that off camera, as I've been messing with it, it doesn't take much. And as you go to move the head around, because you got to get around the shoulders, which are a softer plastic also, and you have to get the helmet in position, and then especially when he's on his throne, sorting it all out can cause an issue and you start to have serious problems and frustration regarding it. Let's look at the rest of the figure. So, as I said, the head is on a double ball peg. You can, as long as you're careful, you can get it up at about the regular height. Let me try to show you. It's a fairly large figure, but when you go to extend it much beyond looking straight forward, it just pops right off. So there it is at regular height. Not much left to it. And then you can get down a little bit Like you basically get from this range here down to there. It's not much, and then you get the swivel and a little bit of, you know, kind of attitude and stuff. Let's talk about the detailings, because they are quite nice. So the entire body is shaded, and it's done subtly, and it looks very good. The nips are painted, which is fine, I suppose. I mean, it's awkward, right? What are you going to do? Not paint them? They are there, and it's part of the anatomy, and we got to just be mature adults about it. And then we have this piece, which is a softer plastic piece that sits on top. It's a very soft plastic, and it doesn't feel great, but I think it might help because it forms along the body well. And it ends up hiding the joint between the chest and the abdomen, which is nice. And then we have these things that are attached to it that are very soft plastic as well, and they feel cheap, but they are painted and sculpted well. We have the gold painted along there, and then we have the spikes painted. We have some airbrushing shading going on between a darker red and the light red, so it looks nice. It's just not the best material-wise, and it looks weightless, which is a bit of a problem. All right, so then we have disc hinge for the shoulder, and that's connected to a ball peg inside, and then it has this sheath that sits over top of it, and it does look pretty seamless, and it does get you great articulation. So back to there, forward to there, up to here, down, around. No, that's a tight joint, and the head just popped off. You see? Because like when you manipulate it, this softer piece can rise up on the ball peg, pushing the head off of the figure. I'm glad that happened, because I felt like I was being nitpicky, and I was like, man, it's kind of working out nice when I was moving the head around, but it's just, there's a lot of problems here. And that's a tight joint in there. Then you have a bicep swivel. You have a double hinged elbow that gets you 90 degrees, so that's nice. These gauntlets, same thing, super soft plastic placed over top, nice sculpt with dry brush of silver on top, so that's ultimately fine. It just doesn't feel great. And then we have the wrists, which are on ball hinges, so you can get in, out, you can manipulate the ball hinge and get up, down, and then the whole wrist can swivel on top of it. You have the red, which is airbrush for shading. You have the strap that's painted. You have the spikes that are painted there, and the hands are sculpted just fine. Same for the other side. Now, I believe it's oh my God, dude. So as you can see, it's a double ball peg inside the abdomen that goes down into, inside the chest that goes down into the abdomen. And because of this soft plastic, it's just frustrating, man. Like it just doesn't work the way it should. But you can get a good range of motion out of it, so that's nice. And then the swivel as well. You have a single ball peg connection down here into the T-joint that connects the legs, and that works fine as well. It's just kind of sloppy, like the way that the softer plastics work around the engineering of the figure, which is really, really, really unfortunate, because the sculpt and the paint and stuff, the detailings are beautiful. So then we have the softer belt, the same type of plastic, which I will admit, when you have him sitting in the chair, it does give a nice effect because it like kind of bends up and folds up naturally. They have airbrushing on there, and then the gold painted studs, and that looks good. Silver's painted on the belt for extra details. And then we have universal joints for the hips. They plug into the bottom. You can get the legs out fairly far, which is nice, and then you can get them forward to about there and back to there, which is fine. You have a thigh swivel built around the universal, so that works perfectly. You have a double jointed knee that gets you a little bit past 90 degrees with this knee pad on of the softer plastic with the same detailings that we've talked about, except that these spikes are gold and faded as opposed to silver and faded, which is fine. And then we have the lower part of the foot. Once again, nice sculpt. These parts are a softer plastic, once again, like almost like a rubber, and they act accordingly the same way we've kind of talked about. And then we have the ankles, which are on a hinge to a ball peg that get you an ankle tilt up, down, a toe hinge, and the slightest bit of a rocker. So the articulation and stuff, the engineering is there. I think it's just an odd choice of materials that ends up making it feel a little less in general than you would necessarily prefer from this guy. And there he is from the back. Size comparison wise, there he is with Sub-Zero in a Marvel Legend, just for the sake of comparison. And I think the size is spot on. And there he is on my shelf. And that is pretty gratifying. Final thoughts-wise, negatives, unfortunately, there's just a lot to talk about. The design and the use of the softer plastics hinders articulation and the stability of the engineering, which in and of itself is fantastic. But as a result, the head tends to pop off, the body can come apart, it's hard to get the hands interconnected to the pegs when swapping out hands, it's challenging to get the mask or helmet to fit properly on top of the head, and then to have all of the other soft accoutrements to sit appropriately while posing. The other issue that I've run into, at least, is use of the ankle rockers getting a dynamic pose. As you can see on his left foot, it doesn't look quite right. Looks like he might need to go see somebody, which I think is called a podiatrist, but I'm not sure. Let's find out. What is a foot doctor called?
Check it out.
That's what I thought. It's nice to be right every once in a while. I also wish it would have come with different hands between the two hands that sit on the throne, and then the other two hands are just very similar. So it would have been nice to have a little bit extra there. And the materials of the throne are dog toys. There are a ton of bonuses though. The sculpt is fantastic on everything. The paint is fantastic on everything. 99% of the engineering is spot on brilliant and works perfectly had the materials been different. And that's what brings us to the to recommend or not to recommend section. Look, I'm a massive Mortal Kombat fan. I love it. It's probably my favorite video game franchise. I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity to have a Shao Kahn figure like this outside of these, so I'm happy with my purchase. He'll be posed and he'll be done. But if you're not as hardcore into Mortal Kombat as I am, you will be thoroughly disappointed, I would imagine. I haven't looked at every Storm Collectibles product, but I can tell you that this is the worst one I've ever looked at. And there's still a lot of great things about it, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's what most people were hoping it was going to be, which is a bummer. So if you love Mortal Kombat like I do, I don't think you can afford to miss the chance of having a Shao Kahn, but if you're kind of passive about the collection, I think this is one you could skip. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, until next time, take care.